Let's get this started just so that we can talk a little more about vanilla. I'm just going to turn on my stove here. And we've got two liquids that are going to go into the panna cotta. We've got the star of the show, which is the 2 cups of buttermilk, right? And I actually add that later. The way we worded the instructions, I have you add everything at once. And I'm finding that I like the recipe better if you add that later. So again, take out your pencils and change that part. But we are going to take the 1.5 cups of heavy cream, pour that in. And I'm going to warm that with that vanilla bean. I'm going to cut the vanilla bean in half and just use half of it. And a lot of recipes will tell you to scrape the inside. I don't like to scrape because there's like these little threads, almost like how celery has those little threads, that sort of come out with it. And I find if you're warming this vanilla bean in some hot liquid, it gives off the little specks like you see in Haagen-Dazs ice cream, the little vanilla caviar. It just comes out naturally. You don't have to scrape and wipe it on there. So I just throw it in. Vanilla beans, of course, are reusable. One shot is not, it's like that great tea bag that you can just keep using on there. Green tea bags you can do that with. So you can use it a couple times in this respect. And then after that, if you want to, rinse it and use it, dry it out and stick it in some sugar, or rinse it and throw it in some iced tea, it will give off flavor for 5, 6, 7 different applications. And we even sometimes at the end will dry them and then grind them with sugar to make vanilla sugar, so you get like even a little bit of the speck. The whole shebang is edible technically if you grind it fine enough. So we've got 1.5 cups of cream in there, half a vanilla bean, and then sugar going in. And tell me the quantity of sugar that I say on there. Half a cup?
Plus 2 tablespoons.
Right, the plus 2 tablespoons is for later. With cookbook editors, I don't like this. They make you put all the ingredients. Is it plus 2 tablespoons up at the top there?
Right. Yeah.
It is. And that's not the tablespoons that go in with the mash? So 1 cup, like 2 tablespoons.
I think it's because it's half less.
Because they're doing a small recipe. We cook for like 500. I made a wedding cake last week, 175. I have to make raspberry cream pie tomorrow for 150 or something. Yeah, so everything is like what you cook, but that is 0. You're cooking for 6, I'm cooking for 60. All right, so we've got vanilla in there, sugar, and the cream. The other thing we want to do is just get our gelatin sponging. So, do you feel like running downstairs? Do you have sheet gelatin in the house or no? Could I just show them some? They might think it's cool. But there's 2 kinds of gelatin. There's the powdered gelatin that you guys buy in the grocery store, which does have a tendency sometimes to lump up if you don't know how to sponge it correctly, so I'll show you how to do that. But when Erin comes back up, I want to show you this sheet gelatin that pastry chefs use. It looks like a sheet of glass almost, or acetate. And you just throw that into water and wring it out when it's done, and so there's never any lumping or anything. And so when we measure, we count by the sheet. So it's and when I went to school in France, that's what we used over there, so that's how I learned about it. But basically, when you're sponging powdered gelatin, you use twice as much water as gelatin. And instead of sort of dumping it all in the water at once, what I do is just sort of sprinkle it over the surface of the water, just enough to cover the surface of the water, and within, it's already happened, so that's 3 seconds, you'll see that the water starts to absorb and soak into the gelatin, and once it's soaked in, kind of do the next layer. So I'm just kind of sprinkling, making sure it's soaking in, sprinkling, versus like dumping the whole thing at once. I just want to make sure we don't go over it. See how you see the steam coming off? Can you guys see that? That steam happens right before. That's at about 180 degrees. Steam comes off of something like that. And we want to bring it to a boil, so we're going to 212. So we're 32 degrees away, is that right? Yeah. So you just want to kind of watch it. Boil over and or burn. So again, I'm just sort of sprinkling the gelatin over the surface of the water. And it's gradually soaking in as I do that. And then I just let it sit. Now gelatin needs to sponge and expand with water, but then it's really heat that's going to melt it. And I know recipes sometimes have you like melt this in the microwave and then you got to pour it in, and it's like working with glue. It's like cooking with sticky and it sticks to everything, and I don't feel like I'm getting all of it in there. I'm never sure. So I like to design recipes where the ingredients melt the gelatin for you, rather than you melting the gelatin. There's also a good chance you could overcook it. You know, it's a protein, and it doesn't smell great when you, I don't know if you've ever like boiled gelatin by accident, but it's kind of nasty. So I think it's much safer if you can add it to some kind of warm liquid or hot liquid, and that way you're really using the heat of that to melt your gelatin. So this has come to a boil, right? My sugar, that means my sugar got dissolved. My vanilla bean is giving off its stuff. It's a good idea if you can kind of let that sit together a few minutes so that the vanilla bean really can give off some flavor before we start cooling it down with things. So let me show you the sheet gelatin. We're going to pass this around. I don't know if you can even see it. Do you remember window pane acid? I should say it. That looks kind of like that. And it's like paper almost. Pass that around. And they're fun. You know, you can get them at, I think Fox and Nobel has them if you ever shop there in the city. I just sur la table kind of place. Or you can just steal it. Aren't they funny? But that's how we measure gelatin. The tricky thing I will tell you, just so you don't think it's completely easy, there's three different, there's silver, bronze, and gold, and they're all a different thickness. And how did you learn that the hard way? Because I did.
I've only used what I've ever used.
Like I always got silver,
yeah.
and you know, my purveyor was out of it, and so he sent me the gold box one day, and I didn't know it was different, and apparently it's a little bit thicker, and everything was like rigid, and I couldn't figure out why. So there's, you know, like a gram difference. So you have to sort of figure out which one you do and stick with it. Like, don't change once you've got your, unless you want to go out and get the like microgram scale. You got, how many have those in the home? I don't even have one. All right, so let's add the gelatin, the sponge gelatin, into the hot cream. Easy. And give it a swirl. Yeah.
How much of this?
Really. If you use the silver box, and I think in one of, someone's got a copy of Just a Bite here tonight that they brought. I think the equivalent is actually in the back of that book, because it was such a pastry chef book, but I believe it's 5 sheets per teaspoon of gelatin.
I think so.
Is that what you're remembering? I think that's what it is. I keep it, I have these little handwritten cookbooks, and all chefs do, and it's in the back of my little book. Yes, right, several, correct. Did you want to add anything to that, or you?
I actually used sheet gelatin for what we're gonna taste,
Okay.
and I use 8 sheets for this recipe. So I have about 4 per teaspoon.
4 per teaspoon, okay. Now, are you using bronze, silver, or gold?
Make it silver.
Silver,
I
okay.
hope.